Okay, welcome to the Flipping and Wholesaling Houses in New York show. My name is Michael Pinter. I teach you how to start flipping and wholesaling houses in New York. If you're already doing it, how to grow your business. Question that is, can a seller back out of a signed purchase agreement? And the question really is, to answer that, where? So in most states, in really 49 states, it's really easy to get into contract, and it's really easy for a seller to get out of contract. Seller just walks away. Now, there are certain tools you can use to protect yourself in different states. You can record the contract. You can record a memorandum of contract, an affidavit of contract. It really depends on the county you're in and what they do. And what that should do, is cloud title, so that if they try to sell it to somebody else, it'll make it harder. But there's no guarantees. First of all, title companies can look at that and just say, we don't care. It's happened, unfortunately, many times. And also, all that means is that if the guy decides to sell his property in 10 years, that a title company might tell you and say, hey, this is here. How much money do you want to make it go away? It doesn't mean that he can't not sell it to you. He still could not sell it to you. Now, however, the great Empire State of New York, the seller cannot back out of a signed contract. Impossible. Just the way it works. It's much harder to get into contract in New York, but it's impossible to get out of contract in New York. So I've had on several occasions the seller call me and say, hey, I decided I want more money, or I decided to sell it to somebody else. And another thing in New York is that almost every single time the seller has an attorney, is represented by an attorney. Now, while that makes it harder to get into contract, it makes the seller very, very quickly educated about how the fact that he can't get out. So in both, I remember 2 or 3 times somebody called me and said, I want more money, I want to get out. I say, just speak to your attorney. And then I always got a call that day or the next day saying, when can we close? The attorney is going to tell his client that not only can he not get out of the contract, and if he does back out of the contract and the buyer wants to buy, 2 things are going to happen. Number 1 is you can file a list pendants on the property. The same as if you had a mortgage on it that wasn't being paid, and literally almost like a foreclosure. So he'll never ever sell the property to anyone else, ever. I'm not talking about a memorandum of contract. I'm talking about a list pendants. It's the most serious thing you can put on a property. And you can sue the seller for specific performance, which means the entire purchase price. If you're trying to sell a property for $400,000, even if you were only going to make $10,000 on an assignment, for example, you could still sue him for the whole $400,000. And any attorney's going to know that, and any attorney's going to tell him that. You've got no place to go. All right, so just to give an example, one of the first deals I had when I started wholesaling, just to recap, the first 4 years I was in business, I bought everything at auction. I got rehabbed everything. And then about 6 years ago, I started going direct to seller and buying properties cheap enough that I could wholesale them if I wanted to, instead of gut renovating them. And this time, I'm probably assigning about half the properties I buy and closing on the other half, and either wholetailing them, which means doing minimal work and putting them back on the market, out on the market for a retail buyer, or doing major renovations, rehabbing them. So one of the first deals I did was a monster deal. It was over $100,000 assignment, $120,000. I still remember it was a Great Neck, and the seller was a very angry man, and he was bitching the whole time about how he was being taken advantage of, not by me, but by everybody else, his job, his wife, everyone. And we're getting to the closing, and I think this might have been the first deal I wholesaled, one of the first deals I wholesaled, and I said to my attorney, listen, I'm afraid this guy's going to get pissed off when he sees how much money I make. And my attorney said to me beautiful words. He said, it doesn't matter how pissed off he is, he still has to sell it to you. He can never sell it to anybody else. And that is how it works in New York. You cannot. And I didn't go to that closing because I don't go to closings, but I can tell you, I don't know if he was pissed off or if he wasn't, but either way, I made my $120,000. So the beauty of New York is it's really a double-edged sword. The way transactions happen in New York, are dramatically different than the other 49 states. In 49 states, a real estate transaction takes place between a buyer and a seller. If I'm a buyer, I want to buy. You're a seller, you want to sell. I can drop a contract. We sign it, and we're in contract. However, real estate transactions in New York State happen between a seller's attorney and a buyer's attorney. And because of that, it takes longer. Once in a while, one out of about 500 or 1,000 deals will fall through because some attorney will jerk you around to the point where it doesn't work. But it's very hard to get into contract, but it's impossible to get out of contract. And that's a big deal. And I always took that for granted. Because when I spoke to people who are doing real estate investing in other states, they were always like, well, we have to protect ourselves, And I was like, why do you have to protect yourself? I never even understood it. There's so many things about New York that seem extremely difficult, but are huge, huge advantages, right? Another one, just because I'm on the topic, is there are no subject twos in New York. You can't do a subject to property in New York because the title companies in New York don't run the transaction. An attorney does. The seller is represented by an attorney. The attorney's never going to allow him to sell a property and keep a mortgage on his name. Title company's never going to allow it to happen either. But what's amazing is in New York, you never buy anything subject to. So anytime you buy a property, you're getting clean title, no lien. So I used to go to auctions. For 4 years, I went to auctions every Tuesday in Nassau County, and I didn't have to run title in advance. I couldn't care less what was on there because I knew when I got it, the seller was responsible to pay that all off. Now I talk to people who do this in Florida or other states, and they have to run title before they go to an auction because they don't know if there's some $1 million tax lien on this property that they're going to get stuck with. And you don't have to worry about that in New York. And there's a million other things that are amazing about New York, but I digress. So can a seller back out? Yes, a seller can back out. If your buyer agrees to let him out, then it's no problem. But in New York, if a seller wants out and you're a buyer and you don't want him out, he's not getting out. He is not getting out. Even in the 1 in a million chance that he's not represented by an attorney, he will find out shortly because you're going to send him litigation papers pretty soon, suing him for specific performance. And then he'll get an attorney, and the attorney's going to go, you got no case here, zero, right? Can't change your mind in New York. It's an amazing thing. So I hope this was helpful. I am now only 6 minutes into a 10-minute video. So what else are we talking about? How about we talk about other amazing things about New York that are two sides of the same coin? So in New York, because of all these interesting ways that we get into deals, which are dramatically different than any place else, there's much less competition in New York, much less, because people don't understand it. I just had somebody send me a deal in New York. I mean, the guy, he's clearly getting his information on the internet from anyone else besides me. Now, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I think I'm the only guy who's actually doing business in New York and teaching how to do it in New York. And I teach it for what amounts to a ridiculous number. So what most people do is they go online and they see great people. I'm not knocking these people at all. There are great people out there who teach how this whole thing works, but they've never done a deal in New York. And when you never do a deal in New York, you're just uninformed about how it works in New York. And they start coming to me with things like, I need an investor-friendly title company. There's no such thing in New York as an investor-friendly title company. They come to me with things like, what contract should I use? You don't use a contract in New York because the seller's attorney draws it up. And they're going to say things like, how long of an inspection period do I need? There's no inspection period in New York. All inspections get done before the contract in New York. So there's really no outs. Every time I go into a contract, I have to assign it or I have to close. Those are my only options. So these are the different things about New York. And when people ask me those questions, I know that they've gotten their information from other people. And I'm not saying those are bad people. A lot of those people are amazing. A lot of people, they're very successful, great teachers. They do great work. But they just have never done a deal in New York and probably never will do a deal in New York because it's so different. And that's fine. I love New York. I love operating in New York. I love the differences about New York. I love how little the competition is in New York. I love how much money we make in New York. I love how most people don't understand what the hell they're doing in New York. And a lot of morons who get into this business, get out real quickly because they don't get it. That makes me happy. I prefer swimming in a blue ocean than a red ocean, right, infested with sharks with lots of people. And, there's pros and cons. I'm not saying don't do business in other states. In other states, it's easier to do deals. But you have a tremendous amount of competition. Everybody who shows up on any list in most states is going to be bombarded with phone calls, letters, postcards, texts, door hangers, all these things. And in New York, you really don't get a lot of that because it's so different. So I hope this was helpful. So in essence, in New York, a seller really can't get out of a signed purchase contract. In 49 states, you can. There are ways to protect yourself, but they don't really protect you. They just hopefully maybe get you paid something in the future. So that is one of the greatest things about New York. It's a great question. I hope this was helpful. So if you're interested in all the ways I can help you, go to howtoflipnewyork.com. That's HOWTOFLIPNEWYORK New-York.com. If you're interested in the course that I teach that teaches how to do what I do in New York, is go to howtoflipnewyorkcourse.com. If you're interested in finding out more about one-on-one coaching, I offer coaching for an absurdly cheap price. One day that's going to have to go up, but it's coaching.howtoflipnewyork.com. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you are watching on any channel, please click the thumbs up. The like really help me. The likes really help me. What else? Oh, the comments. Please keep the comments coming. I try to post 5 times a week, and what I find is that very often I don't know what the hell to talk about. So the comments really help me. So and there's no bad comments, and the comments can be about any topic. It doesn't have to be about what the video's on. So keep the comments coming. If it's a simple answer, I'll reply just with an answer. If it's something that I've covered in depth or recently or anything decent, I'll send you a link to the video. And if it's something new, I'll do a video on it. So please keep the comments coming. I really appreciate it. I try to get to all my comments as quickly as I can. And I really appreciate you watching. The viewership has gone up. I checked my YouTube statistics and a lot more people watching, so I really appreciate it. Thank you very, very much.